What advice did you follow that everyone thought was stupid? My uncle told me, buy old muscle cars and fix them up for cheap. There's only so many left, and you'll get more car for your money than any new ride. When I was 22, I just landed my first decent job at a tech startup and got approved for a loan on a brand new luxury sedan. Everyone my age was driving German cars, showing off their success with monthly payments they could barely afford. But Uncle pulled me aside at a family barbecue. Uncle wasn't the type to talk much, but he always had some cool old car project going, so I figured he knew what he was talking about. I followed him over to his garage and watched him point at a beat-up muscle car covered in a tarp. He explained, that pile of rust cost me $2,000 in 1995. Sold it last month for $140,000. Your fancy new car will be worth half what you paid the moment you drive it off the lot. These old beauties only go up if you know what you're doing. That conversation stuck with me for weeks. I kept thinking about what Uncle said while I was looking at all these shiny new cars at the dealership. Finally, I called them up and canceled my loan approval. Instead of putting money down on a luxury sedan, I started hunting for old muscle cars I could actually afford to buy and fix up. Within 2 months, I'd bought 3 rusted-out classics from the late 60s. There was a Camaro that wouldn't start, a Corvette with a blown engine, and a Chevelle that looked like it had been sitting in a field for decades. My parents were mortified when neighbors started complaining about the junkyard in our driveway. My friends thought I'd lost my mind. Every time we hung out, they wouldn't shut up about their new rides. They'd show off their leather seats and touch screens while roasting my cars. One friend laughed and said I'd never get any girls driving rust buckets like that, only cougars who were into vintage stuff. Another kept saying I looked like I was collecting scrap metal, not chicks. They'd brag about their heated seats and backup cameras, then joke that the only feature my cars had was breaking down. I'll admit, there were moments pulling up next to their shiny BMWs that I wondered if Uncle was wrong. But then I'd remember that $140,000 sale, and I stayed determined to prove them all wrong. For 4 years, I spent nights and weekends in Uncle's garage learning how to fix these things. I picked up welding, engine work, paint, whatever I needed to know. Started hitting up car auctions to see what stuff was actually worth. My social life pretty much ended because they all thought I was too broke to hang out with them. So while my friends were posting pics of their fancy interiors and complaining about 1,400 monthly payments, I was covered in grease trying to get these rust buckets running. Slowly, I started recognizing patterns in what collectors wanted. The models I'd bought weren't just any old cars. They were the specific ones that were getting harder and harder to find in decent condition. My beat-up Camaro had the rare big block option. The Corvette had the split rear window. The Chevelle had the original factory papers that most people had lost or tried to fake over the years. And just as I predicted, the market suddenly exploded with people looking for their dream cars from their childhood. Auction prices went totally crazy. Classic car investment funds started buying up anything decent. The cars I'd bought for scrap prices were now selling for 6 figures at fancy auction houses. So I hopped on the hype and sold that first Camaro to a private collector for 30 times what I'd paid. I used the money to buy out more vintage cars, this time by the dozen. 2 years later, I sold 3 of those for enough to buy a small warehouse and start a proper restoration business. Now I own 26 classic muscle cars, with 12 more in various stages of restoration. My friends are still trapped in those luxury car loans they can't escape, with 2 of them having cars repossessed after getting laid off from work. Meanwhile, I've been getting calls from collectors willing to pay 10 times the amount of my friends' BMWs. Turns out, Uncle was spot on. There will always be newer, faster, shinier cars, but they aren't making any more of the classics.